I'm Barbara Bromley for the WZBN Garden Report. Today we're in Hamilton Square snooping around and looking at some of the landscapes that we have here. One of the things I found in this landscape is woodpecker damage. It's generally known that woodpeckers will peck around looking for insects to eat, but there's also a woodpecker called a sapsucker that will create holes in trees, usually in a straight line. Each hole is about the size of the diameter of a pencil. And they lick the sap that drips out of the tree after they make the little hole. Quite often, homeowners confuse this with borer damage, but because they're in a straight line, that's usually an indication that it's a woodpecker. Another thing I found on this property is some Canada thistle, and it's really healthy here because this is an irrigated property. Canada thistle is a weed that comes up from the ground. It can have roots as deep as 3 feet. And what we do with an awful lot of weeds is pull them. But if you pull Canada thistle, you're not going to get it. And what will generally happen is that where it snaps off underground, you'll get another, 10 plants where you just pulled one. Canada thistle is spiny, so you generally don't want to even try pulling it without gloves, although I did. Here, what you have is a white root, and it looks like you've gotten the rest of the roots. No, you haven't. It's snapped off right here. So there's a lot more of this plant underground, and trust me, it will recover. As I said, you can pull the Canada thistle, but you're not going to get rid of it. The only way to really get rid of it just by pulling, not using any kinds of chemicals, is that every time it gets to be about 2 inches tall, you go out, you cut it again. And hopefully, eventually, it will give up the ghost and die, but it may take you a couple of years of pulling like that. So generally, the best way to get rid of Canada thistle is to use a product containing glyphosate, like Roundup and a bunch of other chemicals, and just spray it on the Canada thistle plant itself. Eventually, hopefully, it will die. There's an absolutely lovely plant that's been in bloom for a couple of weeks now called the tree peony. And it blooms approximately 2 to 3 weeks before the herbaceous peonies do. This year, because everything seems to be ahead by several weeks, it's bloomed earlier. There are some later varieties. This is a later variety, so these buds are just coming into bloom now. What makes it a tree peony is that it is perennial, like the herbaceous peonies, but it has a woody stem. If you want to plant a tree peony, the best place for it is east-facing, which means morning sun, and an area that is moist but not too swampy. That's this week's Garden Report. I'll see you back here next week.